Geo Park stepped out his transport vehicle and looked up at the massive structure of the Greshkin Embassy. The building stretched 30 floors into the sky, its surface covered in the strange bioceramic material that the Greshkins preferred. The material shimmered slightly in the afternoon sun, looking almost alive. He grabbed his toolkit from the back seat and headed toward the service entrance. It was Tuesday, which meant another week of fixing problems that aliens created with Earth technology. Geo had been doing this job for 15 years now, and he'd learned one important thing. Every species in the galaxy had trouble with basic maintenance. The Greshkin security guard at the service entrance scanned his identification card. The tall, crystalline-skinned alien looked at him with those strange, multifaceted eyes that always made Geo slightly uncomfortable. Maintenance contractor Park Geo. The guard's translator device announced in flat, emotionless tones. You are cleared for sub-basement levels. HVAC repair, Section D. Do not deviate from your assigned area. Understood, Geo replied, taking back his ID card. He'd been to the Greshkin Embassy dozens of times before. The Greshkins were obsessed with cold temperatures, keeping their building at a chilly 12 degrees Celsius. Their cooling systems were constantly breaking down because they pushed Earth-made equipment beyond its design specifications. The elevator descended slowly, and Geo reviewed the work order on his tablet. Coolant leak in the sub-basement, Section D7. Probably another cracked pipe from thermal stress. Simple fix. Maybe 2 hours of work if he was lucky. The sub-basement was even colder than the upper floors. Geo's breath created small clouds in the air as he walked down the dimly lit corridor. The Greshkins didn't believe in wasting energy on areas that their staff rarely visited. He found the problem area quickly. His diagnostic scanner beeped steadily as he traced the coolant pipes along the wall. The leak was definitely in Section D7, just like the work order said. But something was wrong. Geo frowned at his scanner's display. According to the embassy's official blueprints loaded on his tablet, Section D7 was an exterior wall. There should be nothing beyond it except the building's outer shell and the street above. But his scanner was showing a heat signature that indicated a space beyond the wall, a climate-controlled space. He increased the scanner sensitivity and pressed it against the wall. The readings were clear. There was definitely a room behind this wall, approximately 15 meters by 20 meters, and it was being kept at a stable temperature of 18 degrees Celsius. That doesn't make sense, Geo muttered to himself. He pulled up the building plans again on his tablet, zooming in on this section. The blueprints clearly showed solid wall and foundation. No rooms, no spaces, nothing. Geo had seen plenty of construction errors over the years. Sometimes builders deviated from plans, or blueprints weren't updated when modifications were made. But this felt different. This felt deliberate. He ran his hand along the wall's surface. It looked exactly like the bioceramic material used throughout the rest of the embassy. But when he tapped it with his knuckles, the sound was slightly hollow, not solid at all. His curiosity was stronger than his common sense. Geo activated his scanner's deep penetration mode, pushing the settings to their maximum. The device hummed louder as it sent waves through the wall. The holographic display flickered, and suddenly Geo could see through the false wall. His breath caught in his throat. Behind the bioceramic facade was a door. Not a Greshkin door made of their organic materials, but a heavy steel door with reinforced hinges and a mechanical lock. A human-made door. Geo zoomed in on the scanner image, and his hand started shaking. There, stamped into metal frame, was a manufacturer's mark that made his blood run cold. EDC Industrial Fabrication, 2189. Earth Defense Command, 2189. That was 58 years ago. The Greshkin Embassy had only been built in 2203, 20 years ago. So why was there a human-made door from 2189 hidden in their sub-basement? Every instinct told Geo to close his scanner, finish fixing the coolant leak, and get out of the embassy. This wasn't his business. He was just a maintenance contractor. He fixed cooling systems and replaced filters. He didn't get involved in diplomatic mysteries. But his hands wouldn't stop shaking. A human door, decades old, hidden behind a false wall in an alien embassy. What could possibly be behind it? Jiho reached into his toolkit and pulled out his universal maintenance key. The device was technically restricted equipment, but every contractor who worked in the embassies had one. You couldn't do your job without being able to access locked maintenance areas. He felt along the wall until his fingers found a seam in the holographic projection. With a gentle press in the corner, the hologram flickered and disappeared, revealing the steel door underneath. The door was real, solid, ancient by modern standards. Jiho inserted his maintenance key into the lock mechanism. The device beeped softly as it analyzed the lock security protocols. These old EDC locks were simple compared to modern systems. After 30 seconds, the key chimed success. His hand rested on the door handle. He could still walk away. He should walk away. Instead, Jiho turned the handle and pulled. The door opened with a long, low groan of metal on metal. Stale air rushed out, air that smelled like it had been sealed away for decades. Jiho activated his helmet lamp and pointed it through the doorway. The light fell on rows of cylindrical pods, stasis pods, and inside each pod, Jiho could see a face. Human faces. The steel door groaned open, releasing a hiss of stale, recycled air. Jiho's helmet lamp cut through the darkness, illuminating rows of cylindrical stasis pods stretching into the shadows. His breath caught in his throat. Inside the pods were people. Human people. Sleeping. Jiho stepped inside the chamber slowly, his boots echoing on the metal floor. The room was larger than his scanner had indicated, maybe 25 meters long. The stasis pods lined both walls in neat rows, their status lights blinking green in the darkness. He approached the nearest pod carefully. Through the transparent surface, he could see a young woman's face. She looked peaceful, as if she were simply sleeping. But something about her clothing looked wrong. The style was old-fashioned, like something from history videos. Jiho counted the pods as he walked deeper into the chamber. 47 humans in stasis, hidden in the basement of an alien embassy. What is this? He whispered to himself. Against the far wall, he spotted a console. The screen was covered in dust, but a small green light indicated it still had power. Jiho wiped the dust away with his sleeve and touched the screen. It flickered to life, showing an interface that was decades old. The main directory appeared, and Jiho's hand began to shake again as he read the file names. Passenger manifests, crew rosters, medical logs, and at the top of every document was a header that made his heart pound. CNS New Horizon Colonial Vessel. The New Horizon. Every child on Earth learned about that ship in school. It was a colony vessel that disappeared in 2191 during humanity's first years of contact with alien species. 200 people lost. The official report said the ship suffered a catastrophic engine failure. Total loss of all lives. A tragedy that people still mourned. But these people weren't dead. They were here, sleeping in pods, hidden away. Jiho's fingers moved across the old interface, opening files. His maintenance training had taught him how to bypass basic security on old systems. The console wasn't meant to keep out someone who knew what they were doing. The first log entry appeared on the screen. It was dated March 8, 2191. Day 1 of detention. Greshkin vessels intercepted us near the Kepler transit point. They disabled our engines without firing a shot. Captain Miho is demanding an explanation. They won't answer our communications. We're dead in space, and no one will tell us why. Jiho scrolled to the next entry. March 10th, 2191. Day 3. They've boarded our ship. Greshkin soldiers in full armor. They're taking everyone into custody. They say it's for evaluation. Captain Miho is protesting. He's demanding to speak with Earth authorities. The Greshkins are ignoring him. They're separating us into groups. I don't know what's happening. His hands were shaking so badly now that he could barely control the interface. He kept reading. March 13th, 2191. Day 6. They've taken half of our people away on their ships. We don't know where. The rest of us are being placed in these stasis pods. A Greshkin officer told us it's temporary. He said we'll wake up in a few weeks after they complete their evaluation. I don't believe him. Something is very wrong. The final entry was dated March 15th, 2191. They're putting us under today. I'm scared. We're all scared. The Greshkins promised we'd be released soon. They promised they'd explain everything to Earth. But if something goes wrong, if someone finds us, please tell them we didn't abandon our mission. Tell them the Greshkins took us. Tell our families we tried to come home. The log ended there. 58 years ago. Jiho stared at the screen, his mind racing. The Greshkins had captured the New Horizon. They'd taken 200 humans prisoner and told Earth the ship was destroyed. They let families mourn for decades while keeping survivors in secret storage. And they were still here, still sleeping, still waiting to wake up. A sound echoed from the corridor outside. Footsteps, multiple sets, moving fast, and the clicking speech of Greshkin guards. Jiho looked at the console screen. A red warning flashed across the display. Unauthorized access detected. Security response initiated. He'd triggered an alarm. The embassy security systems had detected his presence. The footsteps grew louder. Jiho could hear the Greshkins speaking their own language, their voices urgent and angry. They were coming for him. They knew he'd found the chamber. He looked around desperately. The chamber had only one entrance, the door he'd come through. There was no other way out. He was trapped. Jiho's eyes fell on his communicator attached to his belt. The embassy had signal dampeners throughout the building. Standard security measure for all diplomatic facilities. No way to call for help. Not normally. But Jiho had spent 15 years learning how embassy systems worked. He knew tricks that most people didn't. He ran to the chamber's power junction box, mounted near the door, and ripped open the cover. Inside was exactly what he'd hoped to find, a connection to the city's underground utility network. Every building in New Geneva tied into it for emergency backup power. The footsteps were closer now, maybe 30 seconds away. Jiho pulled cables from his toolkit and began rewiring his communicator with shaking hands. If he could route the signal through the utility network's fiber optic lines, he might be able to bypass the dampeners. It was a desperate trick. It might not work, but it was his only chance. He connected the last wire and activated his communicator. The display flickered, searching for a signal. Come on, Jiho thought. Come on. The display showed a weak connection. It was working. Jiho keyed in the emergency frequency for Earth Defense Command. His voice came out in a rush. This is Jiho Park, maintenance contractor. ID number 77492. I'm at the Greshkin Embassy, sub-basement level 3. The New Horizon. The people from the New Horizon aren't dead. The Greshkins have been hiding them for 58 years. I have proof. I'm looking at 47 people in stasis pods right now. I'm sending you the location data. Please, you have to... The door behind him exploded inward with a deafening crash. Metal fragments flew across the chamber. Jiho dug behind a stasis pod as Greshkin security guards and combat exoskeletons stormed through the opening. Their weapons were raised and pointed directly at him. EDC Emergency Operations Center erupted into chaos as Jiho's message crackled through the speakers. Commander Daeho Kim stood frozen for exactly 3 seconds. Then his training took over. Give me a verification on that contractor ID. Now, he barked. A young operator at the nearest console typed frantically. Confirmed, sir. Jiho Park, licensed maintenance contractor. Current assignment at Greshkin Embassy. The signal is routing through the city utility network. He's bypassing their dampeners. Another officer pulled up historical files on his screen. Sir, the New Horizon was lost in 2191. Official report says total casualties. Engine failure. There were no survivors. Apparently there were, Daeho said grimly. He turned to the communications officer. Run voice analysis on that message. Is it genuine or is someone forcing to say this? The communications officer studied her display. Voice stress analysis shows extreme fear, sir, but no indicators of deception or coercion. He believes what he's saying. Daeho's jaw tightened. If this was true, if the Greshkins had hidden human prisoners for 58 years, this wasn't just a crime. This was an act of war, disguised as friendship. His communicator chimed. The display showed an incoming call from the Greshkin Embassy. Ambassador Kelfvar, Deho accepted the call. The ambassador's face appeared on his screen, the translated voice smooth and calm. Commander Kim, we have a small situation. A human contractor has violated restricted areas of our embassy. He is currently trespassing in a secured section. We request EDC assistance in extracting him peacefully. What's in that secured section, Ambassador? There was a pause. Just 2 seconds, but Deho noticed it. That is sovereign Greshkin territory. Commander, the contents are not Earth's concern. Then you won't mind if we come get our citizen right now. He has committed crimes on Greshkin soil. He must face appropriate consequences under our law. Deho's voice went cold. Ambassador, if you're holding human citizens in that embassy, this conversation ends now and we're coming in with full force. If it's just a trespassing case, open that chamber and let's extract him. You have 60 seconds to decide. The line went silent. Kelthvar had disconnected. All teams, full tactical deployment. Deho ordered. Target is a Greshkin embassy. We have a contractor in danger and possible human hostages. Authorization code Alpha 7 read. Move now. In the sub-basement of the embassy, Geo pressed himself against a stasis pod as Greshkin security guards in combat exoskeletons filled the chamber. Their weapons hummed with charging energy. One guard stepped forward, his translator device crackling. Step away from the equipment. Human, you are under detention for violation of sovereign territory. Geo's hand closed around the plasma cutter in his toolkit. It wasn't a weapon, just a tool for cutting metal. But the bright blue flame looked dangerous when he activated it. These are my people, Geo shouted, his voice shaking. You kept them here like animals. You told Earth they were dead. The lead guard's crystalline face showed no emotion. You do not understand the circumstances of the situation. Put down the tool. Did Earth know? Geo demanded. Did my government know you were keeping humans in your basement? The decision was made for humanity's protection during the early contact period. Your species was deemed potentially dangerous to galactic stability. These individuals were retained for observation, and they were people. Geo's voice cracked. They had families waiting for them. Parents, children. You let those families mourn while you kept them locked in this room. The guard raised his weapon higher. This is your final warning. Put down the tool and step away from. The ceiling above them exploded in a shower of concrete and metal. The entire embassy shook with the force of multiple breaches. Alarms screamed throughout the building. The Greshkin guards turned toward the sounds of chaos erupting on the upper floors. Through the hole in the ceiling, Jiho could hear weapons fire and shouting in both human and Greshkin languages. EDC tactical teams were coming. Lieutenant Sujin Han led her squad down the main stairwell, her powered armor absorbing impacts from Greshkin security weapons. The aliens weren't soldiers, just corporate security trained for basic threats. They fell back in confusion as the human soldiers advanced. All teams converge on Sub-Basement 3. Sujin commanded through her helmet comm. Priority target is the contractor and any human civilians. Her squad moved fast, clearing corridors with practice efficiency. 2 more teams were breaching from different directions. The Greshkins were completely overwhelmed. In the hidden chamber, the lead guard turned back toward Jiho. You have made a terrible mistake, human. This will create an incident that... Jiho slammed his plasma cutter against the chamber's door control panel. The tool's flame melted through the circuits in a shower of sparks. The door mechanism sparked and died, the heavy steel door sliding shut and locking. You're not taking anyone, Jiho gasped, backing against the stasis pods. The Greshkin guard raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the wall beside the door exploded inward. Bioceramic fragments flew across the chamber like shrapnel. EDC soldiers in heavy assault armor poured through the breach, their weapons raised. Drop your weapons. Sujin's amplified voice filled the chamber. Drop them now. The Greshkin guards hesitated for 3 seconds, then slowly lowered their weapons to the floor. They were security guards, not warriors. They knew when they were outmatched. Sujin's helmet turned toward Jiho, who was still holding the plasma cutter. Jiho Park. That's me. Gio said weakly, his legs nearly giving out with relief. "Sir, you just started an interstellar incident." She looked past him at the rows of stasis pods, and even through her helmet, Jiho could see her expression change. Dear God, they're really here. Another soldier moved to Sujin's side. "Lieutenant, what are we looking at?" "Get medical teams down here immediately," Sujin ordered. "We have 47 humans in stasis. The pods are active, but I'm reading power fluctuations. We need full medical support and transport. Now!" Within minutes, EDC medical teams flooded into the chamber. A medic named Hyojin ran her scanner over the nearest pod and looked up with alarm in her eyes. "Lieutenant, we have a problem. 3 of these pods are failing. The power fluctuations damage their internal systems. We have maybe 4 to 6 hours before they crash completely." "Then we move them now," Sujin said. "Disconnect them from embassy power and attach portable batteries. We're taking all of them." Jiho slumped against the wall, watching as soldiers and medics swarmed around the pods. Above them, he could still hear fighting and alarms. The entire embassy was in chaos, but the people in the pods would finally go home. EDC medical teams worked frantically in the hidden chamber. Each stasis pod had to be carefully disconnected from the embassy's power grid and attached to portable battery units. The process was delicate. One wrong move could kill the person sleeping inside. Hyojin supervised the disconnection of the first pod. Her hands moved with practiced precision as she attached monitoring cables to the pod's interface. The readings made her stomach turn. "This woman has been in stasis for 58 years, she said quietly. "Her body hasn't aged a day, but the pod systems are failing. We need to move her now." 4 soldiers lifted the pod carefully and began carrying it toward the breach in the wall. The pod was heavy, nearly 200 kilograms with the person inside. They moved slowly, trying not to jostle it. Above them, the battle for the embassy continued. Lieutenant Sujin had deployed her soldiers throughout the building, securing each floor. The Greshkin security forces had stopped fighting after the first 10 minutes. They realized they couldn't win against trained EDC tactical teams. But the Greshkin diplomatic staff were making the real fight. Ambassador Kelvar was on every communication channel, screaming about violations of sovereign territory and demanding that EDC forces withdraw immediately. Commander Deo Kim stood in the EDC Operations Center, watching multiple video feeds from the embassy. He ignored the constant communication requests from the Greshkin ambassador. "Sir, the Galactic Concord is convening an emergency session," an officer reported. "Multiple species are demanding explanations. The Velians are calling this an act of war. Let them call it whatever they want." Deho said coldly, "We're not leaving that embassy until every human is safely extracted." On another screen, he watched the first stasis pod being loaded into a medical transport vehicle. The woman inside looked so peaceful, unaware that the world she left behind was now 58 years in the past. His second-in-command, Major Taeyong Choi, approached with a tablet. "Sir, we've been analyzing the files that Park transmitted before the breach. The data is extensive. Tell me." The New Horizon had 200 passengers and crew. We've only found 47 people in the embassy. According to these files, the Greshkins separated the passengers into different groups. This chamber was just one holding location. Deo's hands clenched into fists. Where are the others? Taeyong pulled up a star map on the tablet. 7 locations were marked in red, scattered across 3 star systems. The files reference other research stations, all of them in Greshkin-controlled space. "I think there are more humans out there, sir. A lot more." Inside the embassy chamber, Jiho watched the extraction operation with exhausted eyes. He'd been awake for 18 hours and running on pure adrenaline. His hands had finally stopped shaking, but his mind couldn't process everything that had happened. A medic pressed a water bottle into his hands. "Drink this. You're dehydrated." Gio drank mechanically, watching as another pod was carefully lifted and carried away. Through the transparent surface, he could see a young man's face, maybe 25 years old, wearing clothes that were decades out of style. "How many have you moved?" Gio asked. 23 so far, the medic replied. We're moving as fast as we can, but we can't rush this. If we damage a pod during transport, the person inside could die. Lieutenant Sujin appeared beside them. Her helmet retracted now. Her face was grim. "Park, I need you to look at something." She led him to the old console, where he'd first read the logs. Her technical specialist had connected a military-grade data extraction device to it. Files were scrolling across multiple screens. "We're pulling everything from this system," Sujin explained. "Medical records, detention logs, research notes. The Greshkins documented everything they did to these people." "Research?" Geo felt sick. "What kind of research?" "Medical scans. Psychological evaluations. They were studying human biology and behavior. The files say they wanted to understand how dangerous humanity might become as we expanded into space." Sujin's voice was tight, with barely controlled anger. "They treated your people like lab specimens." The technical specialist looked up from his screens. "Lieutenant, there's something else. This facility wasn't the only one. The database has references to 7 other locations. All of them have similar chambers with human captives." "How many total?" "The database lists 375 humans across all locations, for different colony ships. The New Horizon, the Soul Promise, the Busan Dream, and the Jeju Hope, all of them reported as lost with total casualties." Geo had to sit down. 375 people. 4 ships. All those families who'd mourned. All those memorial services. And the people were alive the entire time. "We need to get this information to Commander Kim," Sujin said. "This operation just got a lot bigger." Outside the embassy, the situation was deteriorating. News drones circled overhead, broadcasting everything to Earth and the wider galaxy. Crowds of humans had gathered at the security perimeter, demanding answers. Some were holding old photographs, pictures of loved ones lost on the New Horizon. A woman in her 70s pushed against the barrier, tears streaming down her face. "My daughter was on that ship. Is she alive? Please, someone tell me if my daughter is alive." The EDC soldiers at the perimeter had no answers to give her. Inside, the medical teams worked through the night. Pod after pod was disconnected, moved, and loaded into transport vehicles. Each one was a race against time. The 3 failing pods were moved first, rushed to EDC medical facilities where specialists waited to attempt emergency revival procedures. By dawn, 39 pods had been successfully extracted. 8 remained in the chamber, waiting their turn. Geo sat against the wall, watching the operation continue. His eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but he couldn't look away. These were real people. They'd been stolen from their lives, hidden away, and forgotten by everyone except the families who never stop hoping. Lieutenant Sujin crouched beside him. "You should get some rest. We'll handle the rest of the extraction." "I need to see this through," Geo said quietly. "I found them. I need to see all of them safe." She nodded and stood. "Then you'll be here for a while longer. We're going to make sure every single person gets out safely, no matter how long it takes." By mid-morning, all 47 pods had been extracted from the embassy. The chamber stood empty, the old console still displaying its terrible logs. EDC technical teams were making copies of everything, building an airtight case for the tribunal that would inevitably follow. Ambassador Kelfvar finally stopped his protests. The evidence was overwhelming. The humans had been found. The cover-up was exposed. And somewhere in 3 other star systems, more humans were still waiting to be found. 3 months had passed since Jiho opened that hidden door. The world had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. EDC intelligence teams worked around the clock, using the data from the embassy console to locate the other Greshkin facilities. It took 6 weeks to find all of them. Some were hidden on remote planets. Others were disguised as research stations in asteroid fields. One by one, EDC forces raided each location. The Greshkin government protested at first, but their protests grew weaker as more evidence emerged. They couldn't deny what was being broadcast across every news channel in the galaxy. By the end of the 2nd month, 163 survivors from the New Horizon had been recovered. 37 were confirmed dead, their stasis pods having failed over the decades. but the majority had survived. The other 3 colony ships yielded similar results. The Soul Promise had 81 survivors. The Busan Dream had 73. The Jeju Hope had 58. In total, 375 humans had been taken. 212 came home alive. The first survivors to be awakened were the youngest and healthiest. A woman named Minji was among them. She'd been 23 years old when the Greshkins put her in the pod. Technically, she was 81 now, but her body was still 23. She woke up in an EDC medical facility, confused and frightened. The doctors explained everything slowly. The year, what had happened, how long she'd been asleep. Her first question was simple. Where's my brother? Juno was with me on the ship. Where is he? The doctors didn't answer immediately. They checked the records. 3 days later, they had to tell her the truth. Juno had been in one of the failing pods. He died in 2203, 22 years into his captivity. He never woke up. Minji didn't cry when they told her. She just stared at the wall for a long time. The Galactic Concord convened a tribunal to address the crisis. Representatives from 47 different species gathered to hear the evidence. The proceedings were broadcast live across the entire galaxy. On the 8th day of the tribunal, Jiho was called to testify. He stood before the assembly in his simple work clothes, looking out of place among the formal diplomatic robes and ceremonial armor of the other attendees. The lead arbiter, an elderly being from the Taurian species, addressed him. Mr. Park, please tell the assembly what you discovered. Gio spoke clearly, his voice steady despite his nervousness. I'm just a mechanic. I fix cooling systems and repair electrical problems. I wasn't looking for anything unusual. I was just doing my job. He described finding the hidden door, the stasis pods, the logs, the people sleeping inside. I saw 47 faces, Gio continued. 47 people who'd been taken from their lives. Their families thought they were dead. Earth thought they were dead, but they were just locked in a basement, hidden away like they didn't matter. He turned to look directly at the Greshkin delegation. You were our friends. We trusted you. We traded with you. We welcomed you to Earth. And all that time, you were hiding our people. The Greshkin defense team argued for 3 days. They claimed humanity had seemed aggressive during first contact. They said the detention was necessary for galactic security. They insisted the captives were being protected, not imprisoned. But their arguments fell apart when the medical records were presented. The Greshkins hadn't just held humans captive. They'd studied them, run tests, documented everything from brain scans to blood samples. The logs showed cold scientific curiosity, not protected concern. The tribunal deliberated for 2 weeks. The verdict was unanimous. Ambassador Kelvar and 17 members of Greshkin intelligence were sentenced to 30 years of detention. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. They would experience the same captivity they'd impose on humans. The Greshkin government was forced to pay massive reparations to Earth and to each survivor individually. Their trade agreements with Earth were suspended indefinitely. More importantly, their reputation across the galaxy was destroyed. But the tribunal revealed another uncomfortable truth. 5 other species had known about the detentions. Not the details, but enough to suspect something was wrong. They'd said nothing, unwilling to challenge Greshkin economic power. Those species suddenly found Earth far less willing to negotiate favorable terms on anything. Humanity had learned a hard lesson about galactic politics. The survivors faced difficult adjustments. Many had lost entire lifetimes. Minji had been stolen at 23. Her parents were now in their 90s, if they were still alive. Her younger sister was now older than her. Some survivors found that their families had moved on. Parents had died. Spouses had remarried after years of mourning. Children had grown up without them. But humanity took care of its own. Every survivor received full support. Housing, education, medical care, psychological counseling. The government established a special fund using the Greshkin reparations. Minji eventually enrolled in university, studying xenobiology. She wanted to understand the species that had stolen her life. Other survivors found their own paths. Some became advocates for human rights in space. Others tried to rebuild the lives they'd lost. Jiho refused all the medals and honors that various organizations wanted to give him. He declined speaking tours and book deals. He just wanted to go back to work. But his reputation followed him everywhere now. When he showed up at embassies for maintenance calls, the alien staff treated him with nervous respect. Everyone knew who he was. The mechanic who'd exposed conspiracy. The man who wouldn't look away. 1 year after the discovery, Jiho received another maintenance call. This time it was at the Velian embassy. He arrived with his toolkit, preparing to fix a malfunctioning air filtration system. The Velian administrator, insectoid being named Clicks, watched him nervously. "Mr. Park, I want you to know our records are completely transparent. Everything is properly documented. We have nothing to hide." Jiho looked up from his scanner and smiled slightly. "I'm just here to fix your air filtration system." "Yes, of course." The filtration system. Clix's antennae twitched. "But if you find anything unusual, you would report it through proper channels, yes?" "I'd report it immediately," Jiho said, "to Earth Defense Command." Clix hurried away, leaving Jiho to his work. As he ran his diagnostics, Jiho thought about Minji. She'd sent him a message last week. She was doing well in her studies. She'd even made some alien friends, other students who judged her for who she was, not what her species had suffered. The galaxy had learned something important. Humanity's strength wasn't in superior weapons or advanced technology. It was in the fact that humans valued every individual. They would fight for one person as hard as they'd fight for 1,000,000. And sometimes all it took was one person with a conscience to change everything. Geo finished his diagnostics and began the repair work. Just another day fixing alien problems. But this time, everyone in the galaxy was watching. They knew humans were paying attention. They knew humans remembered. And they knew that if you took even one human, the rest would come looking. The end.